Ben Travis wiped the sweat from his forehead as he crawled out of the maintenance shaft. The atmospheric recycler in Section C was acting up again, making strange grinding noises that kept the night shift workers awake. He had spent the last 3 hours replacing worn parts and cleaning filters. His uniform was dirty and his hands were covered in grease, but the machine was running smoothly now. The mining station Horizon 7 was not a glamorous place to work. It floated in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, pulling precious metals from floating rocks. The station was old and everything needed constant fixing. Ben had worked here for 5 years as a maintenance engineer. He knew every pipe, every wire, and every broken part on the entire station. Ben was walking back to the tool room when the emergency lights started flashing red. The station's alarm system began broadcasting a message that made his blood run cold. All personnel remain calm. Unknown vessels approaching the station. This is not a drill. Report to emergency stations immediately. Ben dropped his toolbox and ran toward the nearest observation window. What he saw outside made him stop breathing for a moment. 5 massive ships hung in space around the station. They were nothing like the small cargo ships and mining vessels that usually visited Horizon 7. These ships were huge, sleek, and beautiful. Their hulls seemed to shine with their own light, and strange patterns moved across their surfaces like living things. The ships were clearly alien. Humanity had made contact with several alien races in the past 50 years, but Ben had never seen ships like these before. They were too advanced, too perfect. They made human technology look like toys made by children. Captain Rogers' voice came over the speakers. "This is Captain Rogers speaking. We have been contacted by representatives of the Valerian Empire. They are requesting permission to board the station. All civilian personnel are to remain in their quarters. Military and senior staff report to Conference Room A immediately." Ben knew he should go to his quarters like the captain ordered, but he was curious. The Valerians were famous throughout the galaxy. They were one of the oldest and most advanced civilizations known to humanity. Their technology was so far ahead of human science that many people thought they were like gods. They rarely made contact with younger races like humans. Instead of going to his room, Ben decided to head toward Conference Room A. Maybe he could see these legendary aliens for himself. He took a maintenance corridor that ran behind the conference room. There were several access panels that would let him watch without being seen. The corridor was dark and narrow. Ben had to crawl through some sections, but he knew these passages better than anyone. He reached the access panel behind conference room at just as the first Valerian stepped through the airlock. Ben pressed his face against the small window in the access panel. What he saw took his breath away. The Valerian was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly. The alien wore robes that shifted colors like oil on water. But it was not the first alien that made Ben stare. It was the second one. She was clearly female, though her features were different from human women. Her skin looked like it was made of crystal, catching and reflecting light in impossible ways. Her eyes were large and silver, like liquid starlight. She moved with a grace that made Ben think of dancers or angels from old stories. She wore a crown of what looked like living metal that moved and changed shape as Ben watched. This had to be a princess or queen. Ben could tell just by looking at her that she was someone very important. The other aliens treated her with deep respect, and she carried herself like royalty. Captain Rogers and Admiral Wilson stood at attention as the aliens entered the room. Ben had never seen the Admiral look nervous before, but his hands were shaking slightly as he saluted. The lead Valerian spoke in perfect English. His voice was musical, with tones that seemed to harmonize with themselves. "I am High Commander Drac of the Valerian Empire. This is Princess Zara, daughter of Emperor Vex. We have come to discuss the future of this region of space. Admiral Wilson stepped forward. Welcome to Horizon 7, High Commander. We are honored by your visit. How can we serve the Valerian Empire? High Commander Drax smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. Admiral, your people have been mining in this asteroid belt for several years. These asteroids contain materials that are valuable to our empire. We require you to cease all mining operations and relocate your people. The room fell silent. Ben could see the shock on the human faces. Horizon 7 was not just a mining station. It was home to over 3,000 people. The minerals they collected here were sent back to Earth and the other human colonies. Shutting down the station would hurt the entire human economy. Admiral Wilson tried to keep his voice steady. High Commander, this system was claimed by humanity under galactic law. We have mining rights here that were recognized by the Galactic Council. High Commander Drac waved his hand dismissively. The Galactic Council recognizes the rights of civilizations that can defend their claims. Can humanity defend this system against the Valerian Empire? The question hung in the air like a threat. Everyone knew the answer. Humanity's best warships would be destroyed in minutes by Valerian technology. The 5 ships outside could probably conquer the entire human space in a few weeks. We do not wish conflict, Admiral Wilson said carefully. Perhaps we can reach some agreement that benefits both our peoples. Perhaps, High Commander Drac replied. We will consider your request. Princess Zara will observe your operations while we deliberate. You will provide her with full access to your facilities. Ben was so focused on watching the negotiations that he did not notice the maintenance panel was loose. When he shifted his weight to get a better view, the panel suddenly swung open. Ben tumbled out of the maintenance corridor and crashed onto the floor of conference room A. Every eye in the room turned to look at him. Ben scrambled to his feet, his face burning with embarrassment. His uniform was still dirty from his earlier work, and now he had dust and debris from the crawlway all over him. He looked like exactly what he was, a maintenance worker who had been somewhere he was not supposed to be. Security! Admiral Wilson shouted. 2 guards started moving toward Ben, but Princess Zara held up her hand. Wait, she said. Her voice was like music, soft but commanding. Ben found himself looking directly into her silver eyes. He had never seen anything so beautiful or so alien. For a moment, he forgot to breathe. Then something impossible happened. Princess Zara smiled at him. It was not a polite diplomatic smile or a condescending expression. It was warm and genuine and seemed to light up her entire face. She looked at Ben like she was seeing something wonderful and unexpected. The smile was so real and so kind that Ben felt his embarrassment fade away. The princess said nothing, but her smile lasted for several long seconds. The entire room watched in confused silence. High Commander Drac looked puzzled. The human officers stared in shock. But Princess Zara just kept smiling at Ben like they were old friends meeting after a long separation. Finally, she turned back to Admiral Wilson. I am ready to begin my observation of your operations, she said, as if nothing unusual had happened. The guards grabbed Ben by the arms and started dragging him from the room. As he was pulled through the doorway, Ben looked back once more. Princess Zara was not looking at him anymore, but he could swear he saw the hint of a smile still on her lips. The guards took Ben to Admiral Wilson's office, where he spent the next 2 hours being questioned about what he was doing in the maintenance corridor. Ben told them the truth, that he was curious about the aliens and wanted to see them for himself. He was officially reprimanded and told to stay away from any areas where the Valerians might be present. But as Ben walked back to his quarters, he could not stop thinking about Princess Zara's smile. What had that been about? Why would an alien princess smile at a human maintenance worker? It made no sense. The next morning, Ben reported for his regular shift. The entire station was buzzing with rumors about the Valerians. Some people said they were going to be evacuated immediately. Others claimed the aliens were planning to destroy the station. Nobody knew what was really happening. Ben was assigned to repair a water pump in Section D when he heard unusual activity in the corridor outside. He looked through the maintenance room window and saw Princess Zara walking past with a group of Valerian officials. She was touring the station, just as High Commander Drac had said she would. Ben watched her move down the corridor with that same impossible grace. She seemed to glide rather than walk. But what surprised him was how carefully she was looking at everything. She was not just taking a casual tour. She was studying the station with intense interest. As the group passed the maintenance room, Princess Zara suddenly stopped. She turned and looked directly at the window where Ben was standing. Their eyes met again through the glass. And again, she smiled. This time, Ben was sure the smile was meant for him. She held his gaze for a moment, gave him that same warm, genuine expression, and then continued down the corridor with her escort. Ben stood frozen by the window for several minutes after she disappeared. What was happening? Why did an alien princess keep smiling at him? He was nobody special, just a guy who fixed broken things on a mining station. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Ben tried to focus on his work, but his mind kept returning to those two encounters with Princess Zara. Every time he remembered her smile, he felt confused and somehow hopeful, though he could not say why. That evening in the station cafeteria, Ben found himself the center of attention. Word had spread about his accidental appearance in the conference room and his encounter with the Valerian princess. Everyone wanted to know what had happened. "I heard she talked to you," said Maria Santos, one of the cargo supervisors. "What did she say?" "She did not say anything," Ben replied. "She just smiled at me." "Smiled at you?" asked Tom Bradley, a mining foreman. "Why would an alien princess smile at you?" "I have no idea," Ben said honestly. "Maybe she thinks you are cute," Maria suggested with a laugh. "Do not be ridiculous," Tom said. "These aliens are so advanced they probably think we are like pets." She was probably just being polite. But Ben did not think it was politeness. There had been something real and meaningful in Princess Zara's smile. He just could not figure out what it meant. Over the next 3 days, Ben caught glimpses of Princess Zara several more times. She continued her tour of the station, visiting every department and observing every operation. Each time Ben saw her, she seemed to be paying special attention to the maintenance and engineering sections. And each time their paths crossed, she would look at him and smile that same mysterious smile. Ben was not the only one who noticed. The other workers started treating him differently. Some were jealous, thinking he had somehow gained favor with the aliens. Others were nervous, worried that his attention from the princess might bring trouble to the whole station. "What do you think she wants?" asked his supervisor, Chief Engineer Parks. "I do not know," Ben said. "I wish I did." On the 4th day, Ben was working in the lower engineering section when he heard footsteps in the corridor. He looked up from the power relay he was repairing to see Princess Zara standing in the doorway of the maintenance room. She was alone, without her usual escort of officials. She stood there for a moment, looking at Ben as he worked. Ben climbed down from the ladder he had been using and faced her, wiping his hands on his work clothes. "Your Highness," he said, not sure if he was using the right title. She stepped into the room and walked slowly around, examining the tools and spare parts scattered on the workbenches. She picked up a wrench and turned it over in her hands, studying it like it was some kind of artifact. "You repair things," she said. It was not a question. "Yes, Your Highness. I am a maintenance engineer." I fix whatever breaks down on the station. She set down the wrench and picked up a piece of electronic equipment that Ben had been working on. It was an atmospheric sensor that had failed earlier that week. Ben had managed to get it working again using parts from 2 other broken sensors and some creative wiring. This should not function, Princess Zara said, examining the device. It should not, Ben agreed. But it does. It is not pretty, but it works. Princess Zara looked at him with those silver eyes. Why do you do this? Do what, Your Highness? Make broken things work again. Why not simply dispose of them and create new ones? Ben was surprised by the question. Because we cannot always get new parts. And even if we could, it would be wasteful. If something can be fixed, why throw it away? Princess Zara was quiet for a long moment. She continued to study the repaired sensor, turning it over in her hands. You find solutions where others see only problems, she said finally. I suppose so. It is just part of the job. She smiled at him again, that same warm expression that had confused him for days. But this time, Ben thought he saw something else in her eyes. It looked almost like sadness. Thank you, she said quietly, and then she left. Ben stood alone in the maintenance room, more puzzled than ever. Thank you for what? What had he done that deserved thanks from an alien princess? That evening, High Commander Drac made an announcement that surprised everyone on the station. The Valerians had decided to postpone their decision about the asteroid belt. They would be extending their stay to conduct more detailed observations. What does that mean? Maria asked Ben in the cafeteria. I think it means we get to live a little longer, Ben replied. But he suspected there was more to it than that. Something was happening, something connected to Princess Zara's interest in the maintenance operations. Ben could not figure out what it was, but he had a feeling that whatever the princess was looking for, she was finding it on Horizon 7. As Ben lay in his bunk that night, he stared at the ceiling and thought about everything that had happened. A week ago, his biggest worry was keeping the old station running. Now he was somehow involved in negotiations that could determine the fate of all humanity in this system. And at the center of it all was an alien princess who smiled at him for reasons he could not understand. Ben had no idea that Princess Zara's smiles would soon change everything, not just for Horizon 7, but for the entire relationship between humanity and the Valerian Empire. All he knew was that when she looked at him, something important was happening. He just wished he knew what it was. On the 7th day since the Valerians arrived, Ben was called to Captain Rogers' office. He had never been summoned by the captain before, and he worried that he was in trouble again for his unauthorized appearance in the conference room. When Ben arrived, he found Captain Rogers sitting across from a Valerian he had never seen before. This alien was different from the others. Instead of flowing robes, he wore a simple white coat that reminded Ben of a scientist's lab uniform. His skin was the same pale blue as the other Valerians, but his eyes were different, they seemed older and more tired. Ben Travis, Captain Rogers said, this is Science Director Call of the Valerian Empire. He has requested to speak with you. Ben sat down nervously. Have I done something wrong, sir? Science Director Call studied Ben with those tired eyes. On the contrary, Mr. Travis. You have done something quite remarkable, though you do not realize it. I do not understand. Science Director Call leaned forward. Tell me about your work here on the station. What do you do when something breaks? Ben looked at Captain Rogers, who nodded for him to answer. I fix it, sir. I figure out what is wrong and make it work again. And how do you do this? Ben shrugged. I look at the problem, see what parts one have available, and find a way to make them work together. Sometimes I have to be creative. Creative, Science Director Call repeated the word like he was tasting something strange. Can you give me an example? Ben thought for a moment. Last month, the main computer cooling system failed. We did not have replacement parts, and it would have taken 6 weeks to get new ones from Earth. Without cooling, the computer would have overheated in 2 days. What did you do? I took the cooling system from the backup computer and combined it with cooling coils from the refrigeration unit in the cafeteria. I also used fans from the air recycling system. It was not pretty, but it kept the main computer running until the new parts arrived. Science Director Call was quiet for a long moment. You used components designed for completely different purposes and made them work together. Yes, sir. It is called improvising. Improvising, the alien said slowly. He turned to Captain Rogers. Captain, I need to show Mr. Travis something. Will you permit him to visit one of our ships? Captain Rogers looked surprised. Is that safe? Perfectly safe. And I believe it will help Mr. Travis understand why Princess Zara has taken such interest in him. Ben felt his heart jump. The princess has been asking about me? Science Director Call smiled, but it was a sad expression. Mr. Travis, you are the reason we have not yet made our decision about this asteroid belt. The princess believes you may hold the key to saving the Valerian Empire. Ben stared at him. That is impossible. I am just a maintenance worker. That, Science Director Call said, is exactly the point. An hour later, Ben found himself in a shuttle heading toward the largest Valerian ship. He had never been on an alien vessel before, and everything around him seemed like magic. The shuttle had no visible controls, yet it moved smoothly through space. The walls seemed to be made of living light that pulsed gently as they traveled. Science Director Call sat across from Ben, watching his amazed reaction to the technology. What do you think of our ship, Mr. Travis? It is incredible, Ben said honestly. How does it work? That is the problem, Science Director Call replied. We do not know. Ben looked at him in confusion. What do you mean? Our technology is so advanced that we have forgotten how it functions. These ships, our computers, our cities, they all work perfectly, but we no longer understand the principles behind them. We simply use them. The shuttle docked with the main ship, and Science Director Call led Ben through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The ship was beautiful beyond description. The walls were covered with patterns that shifted and changed as they walked. Soft music seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. But something felt wrong to Ben, though he could not say what it was. They entered a vast chamber filled with gleaming machines. Dozens of Valerians worked at stations throughout the room, but their movements seemed mechanical and lifeless. They performed their tasks with perfect precision, but there was no energy or creativity in their work. This is our main engineering section, Science Director Call explained. These machines control every function of the ship. They never fail, never require maintenance, never need repair. Ben watched the workers for a moment. They look bored. Science Director Call nodded sadly. They are bored. We all are. When technology becomes perfect, there is no need for innovation. No need for problem solving. No need for creativity. He led Ben to a large window that looked out into space. Mr. Travis, the Valerian Empire is dying. Not from war or disease, but from perfection itself. Our machines do everything for us. Our people have become passive observers in their own lives. Ben tried to understand what he was being told. But your technology is amazing. You can do things humans can only dream about. Yes, but at what cost? We have forgotten how to adapt. How to improvise. How to find new solutions to unexpected problems. For the past 1,000 years, we have stagnated. Our civilization is slowly fading away because we have nothing left to challenge us. Science Director Call turned to face Ben directly. 5 days ago, Princess Zara watched you jury-rig a broken atmospheric recycler using spare parts and duct tape. She saw you make something work that should have been impossible to repair. In that moment, she realized what our people have lost. Ben felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? The ability to see solutions where others see only problems. The creativity to combine unrelated things in new ways. The determination to keep trying even when logic says you should give up. These qualities once made our people great, but our perfect technology has made them unnecessary. They walked to another section of the ship, where Princess Zara was waiting for them. She stood before a massive computer console that displayed star charts and data streams. When she saw Ben, she smiled that same warm smile that had confused him for a week. "Mr. Travis," she said in her musical voice. "Thank you for coming." "Your Highness," Ben replied, still not sure he was using the right title. Princess Zara gestured to the computer display. "This system controls navigation for our entire fleet. It is perfect and efficient. It has never made an error or required any maintenance in over 300 years. She touched a control, and part of the display changed color from green to red. Yesterday, this subsection developed a minor irregularity. Nothing serious, just a small deviation from optimal performance. Can you fix it? Ben asked. Princess Zara looked at Science Director Call, who shook his head. We do not know how. Our response to any malfunction is to replace the entire component with an identical one. But this irregularity is in the core programming itself. We would have to replace the entire navigation system. That seems wasteful, Ben said. It is wasteful, Princess Zara agreed. But it is the only solution we know. We have become a civilization that throws away anything that is not perfect. Ben studied the display for a moment. The readouts were in Valerian symbols that he could not understand, but the patterns looked familiar somehow. May I ask what this subsection does? It calculates optimal routes between star systems, Science Director Call explained. The irregularity is causing it to suggest routes that are slightly longer than necessary. Ben thought about this. Why is it doing that? We do not know. Have you asked it? Both aliens stared at Ben. Asked it? Princess Zara said. Computer systems sometimes develop problems for logical reasons. Maybe it is avoiding something, or compensating for some change it has detected. On our station, when a system starts behaving strangely, I always try to figure out why before I start replacing parts. Ben approached the computer console. May I? Princess Zara nodded. Ben studied the display more carefully. Even though he could not read the Valerian symbols, he could see patterns in the data flow. It reminded him of the navigation computers on human ships, just much more advanced. Can you show me the routes it is suggesting versus the optimal routes? He asked. Science Director Call touched several controls, and the display changed. Ben could see two sets of lines connecting different points on the star chart. One set was straight and direct. The other set had slight curves and detours. Ben traced the curved routes with his finger. These routes avoid this region here, he said, pointing to an area of space. Why would the computer avoid that area? There is nothing there, Princess Zara said. Just empty space. But something has changed there recently, Ben said. Otherwise, why would the computer suddenly start avoiding it? Can you check for recent changes in that region? Science Director Call worked at the console for several minutes. Gradually, his expression changed from skepticism to amazement. There is a new gravitational anomaly in that region. Very small, barely detectable. It appeared just 2 days ago. So the computer is not malfunctioning, Ben said. It is doing exactly what it should do, finding the safest and most efficient routes. It detected a hazard that your sensors missed and adjusted accordingly. Princess Zara stared at the display, then at Ben. You solved in 5 minutes a problem that our best engineers could not understand. I did not solve anything complicated, Ben said. I just asked a different question. Instead of asking how to fix the computer, I asked why the computer was acting differently. Science Director Call laughed, and it was the first genuinely happy sound Ben had heard from any Valerian. Different questions. We have become so focused on perfection that we forgot to ask why our systems behave as they do. Princess Zara turned to Ben with an expression he had not seen before. It was hope mixed with something that looked like desperation. Mr. Travis, would you be willing to help us learn how to think differently? Ben was confused. I do not understand what you mean. Our people have forgotten how to innovate, how to adapt, how to solve unexpected problems. But humans have not forgotten these things. We have spent the past week observing your station, and we are amazed by what we have seen. Science Director Call nodded enthusiastically. Your people constantly face equipment failures, resource shortages, and unexpected challenges. And you always find ways to overcome them. You improvise, you adapt, you make things work with whatever you have available. But your technology is so much more advanced than ours, Ben protested. Advanced, yes, but static, Princess Zara said. It has not truly progressed in centuries. Meanwhile, human technology continues to grow and evolve because you must constantly solve new problems and overcome new challenges. She gestured around the engineering section. Our ships are marvels, but they are also prisons. They do everything for us, leaving us with nothing to do but exist. Your ships may be less sophisticated, but they require human intelligence and creativity to operate. They keep your minds active and growing. Ben began to understand what they were telling him. You want to learn how to think like humans? We want to learn how to think like ourselves used to think, Science Director Call corrected. Before perfection made us complacent. We believe that by working with humans, by learning from your approach to problems, we can rediscover our own capacity for growth and innovation. Princess Zara smiled at Ben again, and this time he thought he understood what the smile meant. This is why you kept smiling at me. You saw something in that moment when I fell out of the maintenance shaft. I saw a human who had been crawling through dirty passages to fix a broken machine, she said. Not because anyone ordered you to, but because you saw a problem and wanted to solve it. In that moment, I saw what our people could become again. But I am just one person, Ben said. What can I do to help an entire civilization? Science Director Call and Princess Zara exchanged glances. We have a proposal, the princess said. Instead of taking control of this asteroid belt, we would like to establish a joint colony here. Valerians and humans working together. A joint colony? Our people would provide advanced technology and resources, Science Director Call explained. Your people would provide something even more valuable, the human approach to problem solving. Together, we could create something neither of our civilizations could achieve alone. Ben thought about what this would mean. And the mining operation would continue, but with Valerian assistance, Princess Zara said. We are not interested in the minerals for their own sake. We are interested in learning how humans extract them using improvisation and creativity rather than perfect automated systems. You want to make things harder for yourselves. We want to make things interesting again, Princess Zara said with a laugh. We want problems to solve and challenges to overcome. We want to remember what it feels like to create something new. Ben looked around the perfect engineering section with its bored workers. Then he thought about the chaotic but vibrant atmosphere of Horizon 7, where something was always breaking down and everyone was always finding new ways to fix it. I think I understand, he said. You do not want our technology. You want our problems. We want the kind of problems that make solutions necessary, Science Director Call agreed. The kind of problems that force people to think and create and grow. Princess Zara stepped closer to Ben. Will you help us? Will you be our teacher in the art of imperfection? Ben thought about everything he had learned over the past week. A civilization so advanced that it had forgotten how to advance. A princess who saw hope in a maintenance worker's jury-rigged repairs. An empire willing to trade perfection for the chance to grow again. I am not sure I am qualified to teach anyone anything, Ben said honestly. You are qualified precisely because you do not think you are qualified, Princess Zara replied. That humility, that willingness to learn and adapt, is exactly what we need. Ben looked at the computer display that he had helped troubleshoot. Such a simple problem, really, once you ask the right questions. Maybe that was what the Valerians had lost, not the ability to find answers, but the ability to ask the right questions. I will help if I can, Ben said finally. But I have one condition. Both aliens looked at him with surprise. What condition? Princess Zara asked. Ben smiled. You have to promise me that when I break something while trying to fix it, you will not throw me out the airlock. Science Director Call burst into laughter again. Mr. Travis, breaking things while trying to fix them may be exactly the kind of valuable lesson we need to learn. 3 months later, Ben stood in the new joint engineering facility that had been built on an asteroid near Horizon 7. Around him, humans and Valerians worked side by side on projects that would have been impossible for either species alone. The facility was a strange mix of human improvisation and Valerian perfection, and somehow it worked beautifully. Ben had been appointed as Chief Innovation Officer, a job title that still made him laugh. His responsibilities included teaching Valerian engineers how to fix things with whatever parts they could find, and helping human engineers understand advanced Valerian technology. Princess Zara had become a frequent visitor to the facility. She seemed to delight in the controlled chaos of the workshop areas, where projects often failed spectacularly before succeeding in unexpected ways. She had even started working on her own projects, learning to use simple tools and basic materials. Mr. Travis, she said one day as she struggled to repair a broken communication device using only spare parts from a food processor, I finally understand why I smiled at you that first day. Ben looked up from his own project, a failed attempt to combine human and Valerian propulsion systems. Why? Because when I saw you crawling out of that maintenance shaft, covered in grease and looking embarrassed, I saw something I had never seen before in my own people. I saw someone who was not afraid to get dirty, not afraid to fail, not afraid to try something that might not work. She held up the communication device, which was now functioning despite looking like it had been assembled by a madman. I saw hope. Ben smiled back at her. It had taken him 3 months, but he finally understood what that first smile had meant. It was not about him personally, though he was grateful to have been the catalyst. It was about the possibility of change, the promise of growth, the chance to become something better. Your Highness, Ben said, I think you understand perfectly now. Princess Zara grinned, her face smudged with grease from her repair work. Please, call me Zara. And yes, I think I finally do understand. Sometimes the most important discoveries come from the most unexpected places. Ben nodded, looking around at the bustling facility where 2 very different civilizations were learning from each other. Sometimes the best solutions come from the messiest problems. And for the first time since arriving at the facility, Zara smiled at Ben not because she saw hope in him, but because she had found that hope within herself and her own people. That smile, Ben thought, was worth all the confusion and uncertainty of the past few months. The future, messy and imperfect and full of possibilities, stretched out ahead of them like an invitation to keep learning, keep growing, and keep finding new problems to solve together.